Right. Thank you to everybody that's already joined. We've got a few that, due to other issues, are unable to make it today. But I want to just say welcome to the first DSC community call of the year. I think it's going to be an interesting year for us as a community going forward because there's a lot of new things coming. It's going to be, yes, it's going to be a fun year one way or another. A lot of challenges as things go forward, but nothing that we can't get through. I want to say thank you to everybody that has been adding new features to the resource modules that the DSC community have under the dsccommunity.org banner. There's been a lot of movement over particularly the winter months and the end of the year. So to those that have been adding PRs here, there and everywhere, thank you. I want to put a shout out to Michael Sonata, I think it is, who's added a mammoth PR to the Azure DevOps DSC resource module. We were looking through that prior to Christmas, and it's still ongoing, getting that PR in because of the size of it, but the work that's been done by others in the community to keep that one PR going has been good. And hopefully we'll try and manage to get that merged in at some point this month. That's my aim anyway, as one of the, I will say, loose maintainers for that module. I've not been around it as much as I wanted to be over the years, but it's certainly going places. And I know that there's a lot of desire for us to start moving things to class-based modules, which is still ongoing. Class-based resources over the MOF ones. That is something that is definitely very much needed, and that will work probably in tandem with new resources coming out in future that can be in any other language, so don't have to be written in PowerShell, which I know is a good aspiration, and it should enable a lot more new things come into the community for us to make use of. On that note, does anybody have anything that they want to bring up as a topic for conversation for the next 20 minutes or so?
I can talk about a little bit progress on the Winget DSC repository if people are interested in it.
Absolutely.
All right. I don't know if I can share my screen. By the way, thanks, Ryan, for the intro. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
So if you were talking about class-based DSC resources, I think one of the guys within the Metersys team started out with creating some class-based DSC resources in the Winget repository. So they wanted to cover like all the Windows 10, 11 settings that you can do when you open the the settings app. And I thought, well, let's do some contributions to it. And to be quite honest, I'm quite new to it, so I just started out creating a bunch of modules. And currently, I already covered like the apps, Bluetooth, language, personalization, privacy time. And I'm just going through the list to see what I can do. But to be quite fair, when I was writing the stuff, I already noticed a lot of repetitive code. And then I was looking into some documentation from Mikey and also the class-based DSC resources that are already available in the community. So literally, I think, what was it, previous week, I had talk with Dan, and he helped me set up on getting like the how to say guidelines from the DSC community on the class base. So in this case, I called it just Windows DSC. It's just a name that I throw in there, and I'm just now working on porting all the changes in there with like a let's say resource base in there. So the code will be a little bit more modular. By the way, a huge shout out to Dan. He helped me get this started because I'm quite beginning at this. But yeah, this is just work in progress. And more, my question was to like the community. How can I get this in the DSC community repository eventually? That's it. Actually, I can show some demos, but it's purely turning on settings on and off in your settings app.
So getting it into the DSC community is something that I can't purposely kind of go into a lot of detail on. I know it takes a high bar for us to be able to bring it into the DSC community when it's been an individual that has made a resource in the past. I wouldn't say that it's not something that we'd be willing to do, but it's something that there's got to be a high bar for acceptance in my experience. We certainly could do with a lot more people that are willing to start a project like that and then either bring it into the community or ask to build it in the community to begin with, which is where Azure DevOps DSC started, as a community-driven module as opposed to an individually driven module, if that makes sense.
Not the last part, Ryan.
So instead of me going and starting off the Azure DevOps DSC module in my own, as part of just a project on my own, I requested from the community for the repositories to be in the DSC community, which is allowed to use the infrastructure that we already have for the building, the testing, and the releasing, and allow more eyes to see it more readily. So let's bring that up as a discussion to have with others in the next call about how we bring this in, and obviously the see this and hear this from the recording as well.
Yeah, cool. That's fine. It was more like an initiative because when I was doing a bunch of pull requests, Demetrius also mentioned like he eventually probably wanted to have these resources within the community. So that's why I thought, well, let's follow the official guidelines.
Yeah, I think we've got some documentation on dsccommunity.org on this. I'm not 100% certain on that.
I saw some stuff, and I just see the questions from Mikey as well. Do you want me to answer them, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, open to anyone. It's my focus right now when I'm not working on mainline DSC V3 stuff is around authoring experience, right? And I'm assuming most people on this call don't have thoughts or concerns around like implementing command-based resources in Rust or Go. So I figured I would tailor the conversation around the same things that I'm thinking about, but for PowerShell, right? Because one of the things that I think was true of original for PowerShell DSC and is true now of DSC V3 is that none of it works if there's no resources, right? And getting people to write resources and maintain resources wherever they are, you know, just custom stuff that runs only in your environment, but also stuff that you want to publish and share more broadly, all those kinds of things. I think resources are sort of the engine's great, right? But if there's no resources, nobody can do anything with the engine. And I know that a lot of people struggled early on with writing class-based resources. And so I'm just looking to see if there are things that we can do in the future to kind of address that. And also if I can be helpful to people who are dealing with class-based resources right now in the PSDSC context.
So I think basically the documentation that you already have written is quite fantastic to say. The difficulty here is, I think, the alignment with what's within the DSC community versus what's in the docs itself, and then I'm pointing more specifically to like the resource base that's created from the community, and they do it a little bit different, like the get, set, and test methods that are being developed in the class-based resources. So those are definitely some difficulty that I started out when porting this to a DSC community-based one, let's so to say. What would make your life authoring and maintaining resources easier?
Time. That's the key one for me. I think one of the big things, if we look back historically, is that I would have loved it if we could have had class-based resources at the beginning and never had MOF-based resources. I think that would have, for where we are now, been a much nicer way. Obviously, we can't change the past and go all the way back and change all of that, and the amount of work to convert all of our existing resources into classes isn't a small amount of work. So if the magic wand would be that we could find a way to, and I don't really want to say it because I know we've discussed it in the past, but like find a way to take an existing resource-based MOF-based module and then convert that to classes, that would be fantastic. But again, that's also difficult and probably would have a lot more problems with it.
The Puppet.DSC metaprogramming stuff, that one of the first things you're going to slam directly into is that, in my experience, more than half, maybe as many as 3/4 of the MOF-based resources didn't implement test. It didn't do anything, or didn't match with get. And so even if we could perfectly map the MOF over to scaffolding out a class, and then hold on, buddy, and then figured out a way to take the code from the functions over, you'd still have some really messy, painful problems. The way that I usually recommend that conversion is like to see it as an opportunity to redo that resource, right? Whether you want to keep the API surface exactly the same or not is kind of up to you. But going from MOF to class is a great time to decide, like, hey, what parts of this were really complicated and painful? What parts didn't get used? Should this resource be two different resources? And then set about implementing it kind of from the ground up. But there's really just, there's no good way to do that translation, because a lot of the resources that were written when MOF-based was your only real solution were also people figuring out how to write resources. So they're missing lots and lots of best practices and design considerations.
Yeah. We've had a lot of things change over what is now almost a full decade of us having DSC really out there in the community. I remember WinOps conference in 2016 here in the UK in London, and there was a lot of movement there with obviously moving things into DSC and generally automation on Windows. And obviously now it's not just Windows. We've got this. We've had a lot more movement in Linux use and other use cases as well. So it's, as I said before, it's exciting times. It's just I would like to see if possible, a lot more ability for the community to grow in this. And I think one of the problems that we've had is that the community has constantly had the "is DSC dead" sort of feeling over the years, which we've tried our best to say absolutely not, absolutely not. Just, you know, let's give time to get to where we want to be going, which is a common trait at the moment. And yes, it is 100%. I've been saying for years it's definitely not dead. For me, DSC is one of the best parts of the wider ecosystem. When I look at it from the PowerShell ecosystem that we've had over the years, it's what we realistically have needed. And yeah, checking the stats says enough. And on the V3 bit, I spoke to Steve Lee earlier on because we had the Commandlets working group. He said he may be able to make the second half of this meeting. He had something else, so we may hear directly from Steve. We may not, but if he does manage to get in, we will hear more from him, which I think would be great. I think one of the big ones that for me it's still ongoing is some of the older resources that haven't had eyes on them for a long time. Some that are still with the X prefix to them. So this was when we originally started out and saying they were experimental. There's still some of those that need to be looked over and have work done on them. And if anybody can start looking at those, that would be fantastic. There are people who are constantly adding, as I say, new PRs, and in the DSC channel in the PowerShell Slack and Discord. Yeah, X Exchange is one. There's certainly more that could be done on that module, particularly with Exchange having a lot of features in there. There's plenty of others as well. As I say, there's lots that we can do over the next year. I personally would love to see us get a chance to do a massive hackathon at some point later on in the year, maybe in the second half of the year. See if that's something that the community would be interested on doing. Just out of curiosity, how many people that have been using DSC for a number of years now are using predominantly still the 1.1 engine and are looking at what they do with migrating to V3 when that goes GA? So mostly using V2. Okay, it's good to know.
I'm mainly curious where DSC V3 is going to sit in the Azure space, especially in the machine configuration.
That's certainly something that I would find a future conversation brought up in this call to be very useful. Mikey, do you think it's possible to reach out to Michael Greene and see whether he'd be willing to be able to have a conversation on that one? Because I think he's probably one of the best people in that area.
Yeah, I pinged him earlier. I think a bunch of the dev folks and Michael Greene are caught up in some other meetings at this moment, but hopefully on the next call, maybe. I haven't heard back from them, so I'll bring it up to the team internally and see if we can get them to sort of address it publicly.
Would be pretty cool.
What I would say is it's anything that adopts V3, you're still going to get all your V2 resources are still going to be functional, right? And all your MOF-based resources will still be usable through the Windows PowerShell adapter in V3. But if you're authoring resources and you want those resources to be able to participate in the semantics and your users to be able to benefit from the improvements that you get from V3, that I would author my PowerShell resources as classes, because any improvements and changes are going to be along that road, not along changing MOF-based resources, right? And there's just no good way to get MOF-based resources to be able to participate fully in the V3 paradigm, largely because we can't go back and change anything about how they were implemented and how they're parsed.
Yeah.
Mikey, do you think the export will still be ported to the PSDesiredStateConfiguration one?
How do you mean?
I think the export method that DSC V3 implements, right?
Yep.
It's mainly focused on class-based DSC resources and comment-based one, right?
Yes, command-based resources can do it, and PSDSC resources, class-based DSC resources that have the static export method can participate.
Exactly. Do you think it will still be backported to the desired state configuration module?
I will let Steve answer that now that he's here.
Can you repeat the question or provide context?
The question is whether the export operation will get backported to PSDesiredStateConfiguration.
There currently is no intent to backport it. One of the not the problem, but I mean, it's just, I can understand why the community may want that, and maybe we would do it later. It's not a high priority right now. It would incur like a whole release. So I would say if I see more, or if we see more people providing, I mean, it's kind of like a chicken and egg, and I get that as well. But if there are more resources being built that support export, and there's demand for it from the V2 side because they can't move to V3 for some reason, keeping in mind, like, just because it's available in the PSDSC module, it means the only ones who could really use it is using invoke DSC resource. So that's the part I want to understand is, like, what's the motivation for staying on that when you could enhance your V2 resource where export won't work with V2 today, but it will work with V3. So you kind of have this model where you can still support V2 users and also forward-looking V3 users before we spend time doing that work.
I think you answered the question already.
Okay.
I think it's mostly on the backwards compatibility part, right?
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for all the work that you've done in the repo.
Yeah, I was just trying to contribute sometimes.
It's appreciated. Did I miss anything else? I know I had let Ryan know I was going to join the second half.
I did a small demo on the Winget DSC DSC resources that are open as pull requests, but
Okay.
I was trying to move them to a more official DSC community one.
I guess I'll just mention a few things then real quick. I am trying to target a RC release of DSC V3 probably tomorrow, unless anything major comes up suddenly. And that means that we're going to try to target a GA of 3.0 probably closer to the end of this month. But independent of those two things, work will continue towards 3.1 anyways, right? So basically, once the RC goes out, we'll branch off the RC for the GA release, and then main branch becomes 3.1. And there's a bunch of work that we already know we need to do for 3.1, so we're going to keep moving forward on that. I see some stuff pop up in the chat here. When you say YAML authoring, you're talking about the prototype extension for VS Code?
Exactly.
So it won't be part of RC. I think that we still need to figure out how to finish that work and have it published as an extension. Right now, I don't know if Mikey or someone else had brought it up, like we've been spending a little bit more of our time on the bicep side right now. We don't have anything to announce, but what's not clear to me right now is like how many people actually will, outside of the engineering team like myself, author a configuration in YAML versus in the future maybe authoring it in bicep. Because we do have limited resources and we got to figure out where to best apply them so that both of these sides aren't moving equally slow and maybe one of them can get up to market sooner.
I saw the demo in the previous PowerShell call. If it goes to bicep, it's fine.
Oh, was that shown? Okay.
Yeah. What was his name again?
Oh, I mean, by the way, like because the PR that Andrew had provided is open source, like if someone else wanted to take that, fork it, and publish it, I would not be against that. They would have to support it, but just throwing that out there. Keep in mind that it is still early work to kind of get you a better experience, but it doesn't have a complete, like one of the pieces that's missing in both the YAML side and also the bicep side is really the IntelliSense support for DSC V3 resources, right? So you can figure out what resources are available, and then for a resource, what properties are available, and what are the constraints for the properties, all that stuff, right? And that's like a big piece of it. Like getting it integrated is relatively small versus the other DSC specific aspects of the extension.
I suppose just thinking out loud around YAML versus bicep in that aspect, the bicep makes a lot of sense if you are Azure and Azure local environments. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you are completely non-Azure environments at this point. So if you've got a fully on-premises or disconnected environment, YAML, I've got a lot I could say on YAML. I'd like to see us have the ability to still do PowerShell based configurations, because that's where I think there's a lot of benefit for keeping those who have been used to them come to it. But that is, I think that would be a stretch goal at this point.
Yeah, so I think the configuration keyword for PowerShell, like Michael and I had talked a bit about this, and again, we from a priority perspective, it's not high on our priority list. It would be feasible to potentially enhance that so that it has an opportunity to spit out JSON instead of MOF, for example. Or alternatively, another way to tackle that would be a conversion tool from the configuration keyword into bicep, where there are equivalents. They're not exactly the same, but there are equivalents. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I want to do. It's a matter of prioritizing which ones we actually do.
Indeed. And as Mikey asked earlier on, if
Yeah.
you had a magic wand.
Yeah, I know. I'll be honest, like someone, and it may not be us, unless Mikey wants to take it on, writing a tool to convert the MOF into JSON, which are now both static representations of configuration, would probably be more feasible than something that's dynamic, like the configuration keyword, which allows you to have like PowerShell script in it. So that might be a way to at least transition people who have existing, configuration documents written in PowerShell script into the new world. And then once they move, they have to kind of stay in the new world. Yeah.
Steve,
Anything?
a small question on
Yeah, go ahead.
the support writing progress as JSON that was added as well. Is that also something that maybe adapter resources need to implement or take into account?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
So there was, I think, a PR done by Andrew to support writing progress as JSON, right?
Oh, yes,
I think
yes.
it was a new argument added to the CLI.
That's right.
Do adapter resources also have to take it into account?
Okay, so there's two different things here. That the PR that Andrew wrote that was merged is to support upstream tools that want to call out to DSC and present their own progress, right? They have maybe it's a GUI tool or something like that, right? So that would allow that tool to specify, hey, don't render the progress on the console, send it to me as structured data, and I'll render it in some other way, right? There is a separate issue that I opened a while back. Let me see if I can find it. That allows resources, which would be any type of resource, it could be a group resource, adaptive resource, to participate in progress. That's this one here. And no work has been done on that one. Let me just put that here. Because right now all the progress is being generated by the engine. So if one particular resource takes a very long time, I mean, one of the resources I may want to participate would be like WinGet, for example, right? So if you have a configuration that installs 10 applications, which may include like VS Code or Visual Studio, which can take a while, or like, let's say the Windows SDK, something like that. It'll take a while. So there is a legitimate reason why that resource may want to present some information so that it doesn't look like it just blocked on something. Because the engine will only tell you that the WinGet resource is running with no indicator. It'll have a timer that goes upward, but there's no indicator how long it's going to take or what stage it's at and stuff like that. So this is something that is currently marked for 3.1 considered. So hopefully we can get this in for 3.1, but it also requires resources to participate. So hopefully that answered your question.
I think I got it a little bit. Thanks.
Okay.
The way that I would think about it is once we get things figured out for resources to report progress, we'll figure out a way to make sure that adapted resources can do the same thing.
Oh, specifically like, when we say adaptive, are we maybe talking about PowerShell class space?
Right.
Yeah. Like in that world, conceptually, I would expect a PowerShell class to do write progress, and the adapter translates that into the necessary schema. And because I believe the schema that I told Andrew to adhere to for the most part for the structure that DSC itself emits is modeled heavily after PowerShell progress record.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was not just by chance, that was by design.
Yeah, most resources that are now available in DSC V3 are like the adapter resources are PowerShell, right?
Yes, and I expect that to be true for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And just so you know, like both us working with the Winget team, specifically Demetrius, and you may have already seen him opening these issues in different repos. We're working towards some targeted teams to build V3 resources. But I think at least over the next few years, at least, the predominant set of resources you can use with the V3 config is going to be PowerShell based, or at least the inbox one in Windows, which are WMI based.
You sent me an email. I already opened an issue for the .NET team as well.
Okay, cool.
And a similar thing for folks to be aware of is we've been adding support for V3 resources to do a what if report. So resources can say, this is what I would change if you ran me in set, right? Without the dash what if flag. We'll figure out how V3 compatible PSDSC classes can report that information as well. But that's not yet implemented, unlike export.
Yep. I mean, the goal is that for people who still want to live in the PowerShell world, like they can have all the capability of a V3 resource written in PowerShell class.
Right.
Oh, looks
I
like Michael
like all
joined.
the stuff. I like all the stuff that I'm seeing. So
Awesome.
I had a small question on like the machine configuration part. Just a few minutes ago, like I was curious how the DSC V3 is going to sit within that space.
Michael, you want to take this one?
Yeah. I only caught the second.
The question is about
DSC is going to
what can we talk about machine config in DSC V3?
Oh, we're definitely aligned. So I think the main question people want to hear is timing. It probably will take us more than 6 months to get there. The reason is I don't think that we should I don't think it's sufficient to just jump from V2 to V3 in the existing model. I think we should rethink, because we now have the opportunity to move from MOF to cloud native formats. We should rethink the way that we ask people to author, package, and integrate into their existing infrastructure as code deployments. And we should take our time and get that right. So,
absolutely. Having done a lot of deployments in Azure with the DSC extension for using the the MOF-based resources in the past, so not using machine config or previously guest config, as it was named. Just seeing the path of evolution has been fantastic, and I agree we need to get that right, and that time frame I think makes sense.
because ideally, you just like log into a server, Windows or Linux, doesn't matter, and in a DSL that feels comfortable, you iterate and work with your tests until you get it to do what you want it to do, and then from there to making it part of your deployment should almost be like no steps. You know what I mean? Like it should just be the same as much as possible. You should be able to just carry that into your infrastructure as code. So now you say, okay, great. I know how to make Windows and Linux do what I want to do. I need a network. I need a storage account. I need a virtual machine. And here's what's going to go inside the virtual machine. And you don't have to fundamentally like go learn a new language and tool set just because you also want to configure the operating system. Will we get there and make it quite that elegant and graceful? Time will tell.
And one of the things just for yourself and Steve that I mentioned earlier is I would like to see, if possible, us look to do maybe a hackathon around some of the DSC community resources that don't currently have class-based resources in the second half of the year. So that could be an interesting tie-in with machine config and DSC V3.
I would love that. I mean, we got to figure out how to get sufficient folks involved. And then I can certainly, I'm sure Mikey, Michael, and I would be there. Maybe I can pull in some other engineers if they have availability.
And it's important to understand, I don't know if you guys probably already talked to this because I did join the call late, but the existing resources that are not class-based, you should be able to just use the Windows PowerShell adapter, in which case they'll run in 5.1 exactly the same way that they were originally authored and intended. When I say exactly, I'm kind of putting that in air quotes, I guess. As close as we think that they will be run in the environment the way that they were intended to be run. And we won't be trying to adapt them to PowerShell 7 and PSDesiredStateConfiguration V2. But I think your journey is right, which is to help people who are doing the authoring to understand they can do more faster, and classes is the right way to get there. And maybe if we're far enough along, we can also explore some new models for getting started. Like one of the things we think is true is that there were flaws in our original design for the script resource. It was very difficult to write unit tests for. So instead, if we can still have an entry point for new people who are interested in authoring, but not scare them away and make them think that they have to be some sort of like developer expertise that they're imagining at the time, right? And just say, you know what, create a set.ps1, or really, if you're just doing audit, write a get.ps1, put it in your manifest, wrap the JSON wrapper that explains what to do, and you should be done. Like one PowerShell script, you should be able to audit the state of a machine. That's a learning journey that doesn't exist right now. And it'd be very cool to explore that with the community.
Yeah. I think that might be something that would be interesting to see as a path on learn.microsoft.com.
Yeah.
Which I want to just say, outside of what's available now, I've done quite a lot of the bits that are in there. So shout out to all the people who've authored the PowerShell paths over the, I don't want to say how long it has been that we've been asking for this, but that they're now there. It's good to see. And if you haven't looked at them, go and have a play with them, and see how much you already know about PowerShell and how quickly you can get through them. I think we managed to cover quite a lot in the 45 minutes. If anybody's got anything else they want to bring up, this is probably the best time to do so. And if not, we can probably call it and get a quarter hour of our evening back, or morning, or whatever time of day it is with you.
Thanks for the sponsors, Steve, Mikey, and Michael.
No, I want to thank everyone in the community, right? We're all working on this together, hopefully for a benefit of everyone.
Indeed.
See you around.
And as I said,
All right, stopping the recording. We'll get it posted somewhere.